Oh, we're live. Hey, whoa, check. Microphones on. Doors are open. Everyone's here. I've got a 40-minute timer down here, but today I'm planning to take maybe 15 or 20 minutes to talk about myself. So thank you, everybody, for being here to endure that. But while this is about myself, I just want to take a quick moment to shout out everybody who's here. We've got Emmett and Bree. I see Penny, I see Jeremy, I see Corey, I saw Jeff from Outseta. So just so many people who have really influenced my journey. Casey, Nelson, my intern and fiance Heather is here right in front taking photos right now. Miko, everybody's just so here and I'm so happy. My mom and dad are trying to watch at home, probably calling my brother for tech support, which gives me a devious sense of pleasure as the younger child. Okay, so that's my little intro. Today I'm going to talk about how I learned to code by using Webflow. So taking Webflow to the next level with code. And I've actually been trying to learn how to code for a long time. This is a picture of me from high school. I was a smart kid in high school. I got good grades and thought I would take AP Computer Science. And I did all right in this. I knew how to do schoolwork. I knew how to pass tests, but I didn't know how to build stuff from scratch. I just found coding really hard, and I was actually this guy. I was asking the smart kid in class, like, hey, Dan, can I borrow your homework? And, or can you help me with this problem? We have this maze finding algorithm, or how do I traverse a binary tree? And he would help me with the syntax. We were learning Java at the time. And we didn't have ChatGPT back in the day. So, like one little missing curly bracket could mess you up for hours. And this is his pedigree. I pulled this from his LinkedIn. He's been working at Google for 12 years now. So I was academically freeloading from the correct person. So again, I'm not completely dumb. I am kind of smart. But I just did it to get the grades. I didn't learn how to actually build anything, right? So I took the test, and sure, I got into college, and this is me in college. I couldn't actually find any pictures of myself studying. I chose electrical engineering because I was a nerd. I grew up in Silicon Valley. It was very much sexy to have a startup in your garage. This was back in the day when people said, I work for Google or I work for Facebook, and they didn't feel ashamed about it. But yeah, so this is me. I got into rock climbing as a kid from California does. And I did take my computer science classes. I was in the electrical engineering computer science option, which meant like, hey, you study circuits, but you also do computer science stuff because turns out electrical engineering does require a lot of coding. However, in my intro to computer science 2 class, I got a C+ here. And Heather kindly asked as I was putting these slides together, she goes, wow, were your classes not on a curve? And I said, no, they were. That's what I got with the curve. So what do people with C+s in their classes do? They get down on themselves, they call themselves stupid, and they join the military. So I ended up spending 10 years as a submarine officer in the Navy. These are some photos of my adventures from then. I loved it. It was like they were seeking out engineers. It's nuclear engineering. It's a lot of cool hydraulics and stuff on board a submarine. But I wasn't writing any computer code or doing, it was mostly operational. It wasn't very engineering or design heavy. So I ended up getting out of the Navy, and I had to ask myself, this was after 10 years, what's a job I can get or something I can do that provides financial security, schedule freedom, and personal satisfaction? I was lucky enough that the Navy did take good care of me, so I had some runway to try to figure out, to answer that question, what do I want to do with my life? So it's important to me to provide financial security to myself and my family. So I looked up what are the top earning jobs in the US. And this is 25 of those top earning jobs, and actually 22 of these are in the medical field. We see surgeon, radiologist, obstetrician, gynecologist. I'm not going to go back to school for another 8 years to try to get on this board. So that leaves us with 25 minus 22 is 3 options. And we see here we've got chief executive. I don't think I'm ready to be chief executive of anything. There's also airline pilot. Where's airline pilot? Right here. Co-pilot or flight engineer. And now I knew how to fly a steel tube underwater, but I didn't know how to quite do that in the air. So again, I wanted something now. I didn't want to spend another however many years of my life going through training. And down at the bottom here, we have computer and information systems manager. So I was like, okay, that dream of learning to code, maybe I can revive that. And I was watching a lot of the YouTubers and tipsters and people who are famous for programming and got kind of inspired, like they're working from their couch, this kind of thing. We've got an electric wave runner board, whatever that is. You can be a total goofball and make a lot of money learning to code and have a good lifestyle. A lot of those other jobs also don't have schedule freedom. So remember, that's one of the things that I really wanted. And the last one was personal satisfaction. I wanted to feel good about my job and the job I was doing. And I did get a lot of that from the Navy, and because people would tell you, like, oh, thank you for your service and this kind of thing. Nobody says, thank you for your programming, at least not these days. What you say is, I hate programming because you're trying to solve a problem. Bree's always hit me up about sliders. She doesn't like sliders, but I do. And that feeling you get when it works is really nice when you're programming, and something finally works and it just clicks. So I was like, I could continue to try to seek this out, and I think this would be pretty nice to provide personal satisfaction in terms of work. So that's the question. Can I learn to program now? And I've already failed twice. How do I do this? Well, I moved into my mom's room, or my room back at my mom's house, and set up my room. This is my coding dungeon. I had a folding table and a laptop, and I put here, build 5 apps. I don't know why I thought that was like a good way to set a goal. I was just like, I'm going to build 5 apps, and then I'll be able to say I'm a programmer. And now, how do you start learning something new? Well, you go to Udemy and you buy every course that Udemy offers on programming. So here we've got 100 days of Python, Web Developer Bootcamp, React Developer, React Native, complete iOS app development, Flutter, more Python, Next.js, and this is just the first page. There's 24 courses here. So I was just like stuck in this beginner loop. Many of you may have experienced this. I was just relearning the same kind of concepts over and over, just with a different technology. And I was hoping that one technology would just catapult me into this job that I wanted, or this life that I wanted. I did find this course actually incredibly useful. This is CS50 on Harvard. It's actually free, so you don't even have to buy this one. This took me kind of back to those high school days. It was like, and those college days of learning algorithms and these things with programming that I was trying to avoid. I wanted to build apps and real stuff. I didn't want to just rewrite a maze finding algorithm that's been rewritten hundreds of times. But one thing that was unique about this course is that they ask you to upload a screen recording of your assignment to YouTube when you're done. So again, you're not actually paying money, but you're held accountable by creating these little recordings of yourself, like walking through the code and explaining what you did and decisions you made. And this was kind of my intro to YouTube. Some of you probably know me from YouTube, but this is on my Keegan Leary channel, not my Web Bae channel. Just kind of interesting that those are still there and unlisted, and I just posted them. Maybe they're not unlisted. Like this one has 953 views because building a match game turns out is really hard, or was hard. It's actually not that hard now, but it depends. It's all relative, right? Another way I tried to get into coding was by game development. I actually succeeded in this one. This is a game I had on the Apple App Store called Fan Surfer, probably like my prized moment. I did all the art myself, but it was just code cobbled together from different YouTube tutorials. And my friends were playing it because they could download it. My brother and his friends were playing it and sending me screenshots of their high scores. And they all wanted to know who had the highest score. And I was like, oh, wow, I should, like, these are my users. And they're asking for a highest score or a leaderboard feature. And I couldn't figure out how to use the APIs available through the App Store and the Google Play Store to actually do that. So this is like a good success for me, but also a failure at the same time. So back to this. I'm coding with the tutorial. I'm doing great. But without the tutorial, I'm not doing so great. And 2 of my favorite memes around this idea of tutorial hell are right here, in that we're like hooked up to tutorials as oxygen, and yeah, we just can't escape this thing, right? And all the gurus online are telling you stop watching my videos because they know that the way you learn to code is by doing projects, right? And I'm actually here to tell you the same thing. I definitely believe that you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And I'm here to tell you that I am now the villain. I'm a proud villain coder, and I offer courses and tutorials, but I also really recommend that you try to work on your own projects too. So what happened? Where does Webflow fit into all of this? Well, I was just grinding on my Udemy courses and asked my friend if he wanted to go for drinks, and he said no. He's working on a startup as well in San Francisco. And he said, by the way, have you heard of Webflow? He was working on his marketing site. And I was like, no, but what does one do when they hear about a new tech product? You go and you watch courses about it. And I had talked about how CS50 from Harvard was really unique and that I actually felt like I took a step in learning. And Webflow was unique because their learning was like, they were pushing you to start a freelance portfolio. And this was the first tutorial series I had ever come across that was like encouraging us to freelance with their tool. They had the 21-day design portfolio course and the freelance web design bootcamp. And everybody here probably knows that Webflow University is just legendary. So that's how I got my start. And I was encouraged to start my Upwork profile. This is my live Upwork profile today. I still take a handful of clients from Upwork every year. But I was starting out at about, I think I advertised like $40 an hour and was taking projects for $20 an hour, definitely less than that. It was all about building my portfolio and getting the muscle motion, the reps in to do it. It's just one way to do it. There's many ways to freelance success. This is not the way, but I found like I was held accountable because I owed a deliverable to people. And it was a really good way for me to keep building. But what I did find, well, let me pause on that. Something that was also unique about Webflow was that I bought whatever plan it was called at the time. Right now it's the agency plan, that you can have unlimited staging sites on .webflow.io domains. And so what I would do is I would comb through all the Upwork jobs, look for ones that had Figma files, and I would say, can I build this in Webflow? And I would try to build a section or two and then send it to them, and I would say, hey, I already built this in Webflow. Do you want me to build the rest of it? And that I found was a really successful or really good way for me to get new clients and just keep work coming in. I was hoping, I don't see Hal here. I was going to call him out for something here, but that's okay. Hal just saw how I do this. I still do this to this day. Somebody is looking for a JavaScript integration on top of Webflow, and I just sent them a working prototype with this thing integrated already. So there's a ton of people on Upwork. If this is you and you want more work, I definitely recommend checking it out, but it is hard, so beware of that. My very first client that I got was using a template for a job board, and they wanted to add dynamic filtering to this. And I knew Webflow could do filtering on the server side, but I didn't even really know what dynamic filtering on the client side meant, and I ended up taking this job. So that's why I sometimes recommend not doing this. But then I discovered FinSuite, that there's these companies that are building plugins around Webflow to unlock this for you. And so I was able to figure that out, and I'll show you later what's called CMS library was my very first experience with JavaScript as a Webflow developer. Which now makes me want to introduce you 10 web development fundamentals that I learned as a result of using Webflow. So this is how Webflow taught me to code through various things that I didn't even realize at the time. So we have HTML. I had a client who wanted background videos in Webflow, but they wanted it to be CMS based. So if you're a trickster in Webflow, you know that you can upload to the Webflow background video, grab the MP4 link, chuck that in the CMS, and then just copy paste the Webflow HTML that's written for you into an embed like this. So that's HTML. CSS, if you've ever dropped a text area in a form in Webflow, you know that you can resize it any direction you want and ruin all those fancy designs. So setting this resize property to vertical made it constrained to just the vertical axis. So now I'm writing CSS all of a sudden. And that gets even more complicated with selectors and putting those sliders on our pages. And how do we customize this teeny little dot here? Because it's the default blue color with the CSS that ships with Splide, but I want to turn it to gray or something like that. JavaScript, I mentioned FinSuite's CMS library. This was before the attribute system existed. And so there's if you take my JavaScript course, you'll learn what an immediately invoked function is, but that's what's going on here. And again, no ChatGPT was around during these days, so I was spending days and days just trying to get my brackets and my parentheses right, writing this in the Webflow code editor there. We had JSON. When Webflow launched Logic, all of a sudden I'm putting what's called JavaScript object notation down here, getting my little quotes right, injecting stuff. What else do we have? We have Chrome developer tools and doing HTTP requests. There's always SEO guides that come out, it seems every month, and people are saying, well, take your fonts and your Google fonts and upload them directly. And so I was like, what is that even doing? And you can actually see that here, what the font files are doing and how they're working. So getting exposed to that. Browser APIs, I got really into animation, and I still am really into animation. One of the APIs there is the Canvas API that lets you draw things on screen in a more performant way. So I was doing that and releasing that to YouTube. This client versus server relationship, I had a client who had a bunch of data in Google's BigQuery and wanted a front end for that in Webflow. And so I had to use Zeno, Cloudflare Workers, and kind of research all these tools that could do that in a safe manner. Domain name or DNS, I still don't even know what this does, but apparently you copy paste numbers from one place to another and call it a CNAME or an A name, and now you can click one button and it works. But hey, I struggled through it enough times and it worked, after failures, but I'm comfortable enough to get it done now. So by the laughs, I'm guessing people resonate with that. And then the document object model, or the DOM. And this is coming back full circle to what I said earlier. I mentioned a tree traversal algorithm. Well, it turns out the web is just a tree with all of our HTML tags in there. And now I'm learning that I'm using these JavaScript methods to select stuff from the DOM, and that's using some sort of tree traversal method. So, okay, that's why they're teaching this in high school and college. It just felt a little bit backwards. I felt like we should be building stuff first. So here I am. I'm Neo from The Matrix, and I know web dev. And it came at a really good time because Webflow had launched their apps ecosystem. And I got pretty excited about this idea of building native experiences in Webflow, and I felt like I was just kind of dangerous enough to maybe squeak something out. And I got a lot of help. At the time I was working on the FinSuite client team, and they brought me onto the product team, and we launched FinSuite Table with the V1 of the APIs, and then recently we launched FinSuite Components. The team worked really hard on this, and it was tough because Webflow was revamping their APIs from V1 to V2 while we were doing that. And we kept asking them for more stuff, and I thought they were going to say no, but then Webflow would just build the API for us that we asked for. So it took us a while to get it through, but we did. And I was just leveling up like crazy and just really loving all these Webflow apps, so much that in my free time, I would build my own too. So I had a client where I was using clip paths a lot, and I was like, why don't we put a clip path experience in Webflow? So I made this app, Clip Path Bae. I had another client who uses like fancy section breaks, and so I researched that because there's always this like little SVG line when you're using it. I see some heads nodding. So like, what is that? Do we just do a -1 pixel margin? Is that like what we actually do? And it turns out that's kind of what we actually do. And so this does that for you. Asset Bay uses, AI is hot, so I wanted to see if I could. This is my first time using like fetch requests, and client side, it talks to the CMS within the Webflow app. It's the first time I ever charged money for an app, and it just uses AI to look at the image and generate alt text for you. So you can, in like 2 minutes, what used to take an hour or two, you can get done. And then the most recent one is Placeholder Bay. For me personally, I spend a lot of time building these prototypes on .webflow.io domains or examples for my YouTube. And I just want this ability. I spend so much time curating images and text, and Webflow did just release the text feature for CMS, but this one will do images for you as well. So this is like solving a personal problem for me. I can press one button and have 10 CMS items, all with multi-image support, better rich text, bold font, italic font, so that when you're delivering these client sites, you're reminded to design everything when you start. So here's an emotionally manipulative slide of me working from my laptop on the couch, feeling confident that I have a job now that provides financial security, schedule freedom, and some personal satisfaction. It's not all roses and gravy every day, but remember, I am the villain. I offer coding tutorials, and that is how I am able to progress and continue making apps. So this is my Patreon. You can see right now I have a course on how to build a Webflow app like we do for production. I have Barba.js mini-series. I have the JavaScript and Webflow course, which Jeremy has said is really hard, but it turns out coding is really hard. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, what I'm trying to do is show everyone how to unlock Webflow with the power of code. So thank you so much for attending. My name is Web Bae, also known as Keegan. I guess the Webflow employees were like, we actually say your name twice every time we mention you guys. So I'm lucky in that regard. But that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for attending. And I guess I'll take questions. I think people have been doing Q&A. So yeah, thank you.
I have an idea for an app, but I do not want to build it. Can I hire you?
Yes. Yeah. I'm on Twitter. You can find me there. Great. Or go to my website. Yeah. Or you can share your app idea right now, and I don't know. I can tell you if we want to build it or not.
What's your strategy with your Patreon and your vision for that part of your kingdom?
Thanks for asking. I was definitely influenced by watching Timothy Ricks. He's a huge inspiration to me. And I saw what he was doing in Patreon and thought maybe I can do that too. My strategy is that it's the bottom of my funnel. It's where I have a lot of people who really resonate with my content, and I see a lot of people who want to learn coding and are using Webflow to do that. And so Patreon exists as a place where I can hopefully get funded to live that lifestyle that romantic freelancer lifestyle, right? That's actually not so romantic, we find out when we start, because you're beholden to client deadlines and that kind of thing. But that's my vision, is just to keep growing it. It's a very rewarding place. It's a validating place. I recommend it, especially for freelancers because the income is irregular. So if you can have a couple people who are fine with handing you $20 a month, and that adds up over time, then it really helps. So, does that answer the question? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, great talk. I'm curious how you balance content creation and client work, and which one you prioritize if you have a personal deadline and also need to balance, just different clients demanding.
Yeah, the question is about balancing client work with content. The answer is client work always comes first. It's just really hard. I think I had like 3 months that I went without a YouTube video. I try to just look at it as, can I get a YouTube video done and a Patreon video done once a week? My latest course is the first time I actually filmed the whole course, and I'm releasing it every week, a new video. So I'm still experimenting and figuring that out. I think the answer is what you expected, that it's hard, and I try to not sure, I would love to just make more YouTube videos if I could, and more videos, but it's hard. I can't, and I would love to get my production quality better, but that's hard too. So yeah, but client work always comes first, and that's why I've really focused in this last year of consolidating my clients. I work with a select few clients. I'm a lot better at saying no than I used to ever be able to. Then, like when I started, it was yes, 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 as much as possible. So, but YouTube is definitely it's the top of the funnel, and that's where people find out about me. So it's a very important piece. It's not. Yeah, I try to treat it as my marketing, basically. Yeah. Thank you.
Great talk.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you. Like you said, the top of the funnel is YouTube, and I feel like that's where a lot of us found you, and you helped us all throughout a problem we're having. So I want to thank you for that. My question is, where did the name Web Bae come from?
I wish I should probably figure out an origin story for this or something. I just I wanted to try to feel anti-corporate. That's when you talked about being your authentic self and personal branding. To me, a freelance developer kind of guy working on his laptop says anti-corporate. It says I make the rules kind of thing. And with that comes this idea of passion and love. So Bae is just a fun word. And I was trying to think of how does it need to say, should Flow be in the name? I'm sure everybody has this kind of question. We've got Flow Man here. So the other thing I liked about it is that I am from the Bay Area. So Bae is a play on words with Bay. And a funny piece of it is that I get a lot of DMs, cold DMs as one does, to, hey, Web, or excuse me, Mr. Bae. And that just it makes me so happy every time. And I was talking to, who was I chatting with? Hassan over at FinSuite. He was just telling me how much he loves this idea of Web Bae, and he's like, you need to lean into this more, man. Make it, that anti-corporate piece that you dreamed of. So yeah, to get that it resonates with people is really fun. And I like the emoji with the face around the hearts on it. And so, yeah, it's just trying to have fun at the same time, too. We've got a question over here.
Building off of that question, how much did you consider personal branding along the way of growing a public audience on YouTube, as well as your client roster and getting deeper into your career?
Great. Thanks for the question. The question's about how much did I consider personal branding. I'm definitely not known for my design skills, I would say. I would love to level up in that space too. My very first one actually was, my first branding was not like anti-corporate. I wanted it to be, but I still built, it was just like 5 colored squares that made a W. And yeah, it was really boring, I think, now that I look back on it, but that's just where I was at. So I'll just bring up Bree's mention again, like it really, yesterday when she was talking about being authentic, I guess, and just kind of doing what resonates with you, that's how I think about it. I had also started that YouTube channel under the name Keegan Leary, so I knew I couldn't have the Keegan Leary YouTube channel because I was like filming some hikes at the time, and like I was like really into this idea of building content around the outdoors. So Keegan Leary was already taken, so I had to come up with something new. But yeah, if I was starting, I would definitely just use my first and last name and try to not really think about branding right away. I don't know, my portfolio is not really a portfolio. When I send a proposal to people, it's here's my YouTube channel, here's my Twitter, here's some stuff I've done with Webflow, here's the 1 or 2 recent projects. But I'm not marketing like website builds in the typical way that I see a lot of people do. So yeah, if you go to my website, my CTA is, buy my courses from Patreon at the top. So that's where I want to be. I want people to join my Patreon and people to watch my videos. I still want to do client work. I love it. It's how I get content ideas. But yeah, that's my take on that, I guess. Yeah. 80% solution, like just ship stuff, and people will tell you if they like it or not. They will tell you if there's bugs. Maybe it's unfortunate. I don't know. I heard this like, oh, we're using users as our beta testers now instead of actual QA departments. But as a one-man person, I can QA my stuff, but once I've already worked on something, it's like my QA process is worthless because I know the product too well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us, when we start freelancing, there's kind of this big learning period where you're just, spending hours a day watching tutorials, and you kind of do feel really good because you're progressing a lot and learning new skills. And I feel like as you progress more and start doing more client work, that learning time cuts back and you don't spend as much time progressing in those areas. I'm just curious for you, like, how do you still find the time to maybe still progress and like learn new skills when you're having to balance now client work and content creation? As well as that? Yeah,
good question. It's about how do you balance learning new stuff as your freelance career kind of kicks off. And it's different. It does change. I do spend less time watching actively and like learning actively, I would say. The way I learn now is by either taking on projects that feel a little bit scary, and I've become more confident with this idea of I don't know how to do this now, but I've enough times delivered something and like learned along the way that I can do that. So definitely a piece. I think part of my job is just learning. That's how I look at it. I did try to sit down with Bruno Simon's 3JS course like over the holiday weekend. I was like, okay, no freelance work, and I'm gonna watch it. His course, each episode is like 3 hours long, and I was like, okay, I got the gist of this. I don't know. So I try to stay current is one thing I try to do. I try to take projects that are challenging. Definitely when we were building the apps at FinSuite, like I talked with Joe, I was like, look, I've never done this before. And he's like, it's okay, we've seen you. Like, we have a team, Alex and Robert were absolutely huge in helping me level up. So not being completely solo, like I really like agency work in that regard, and that there are people who will help you out of a rut if you get into one. So yeah, that's how I think about it. And thank you everyone for coming. That was really fun.